Many good books don't sell. Yep, we're going there today with my new friend Julie, aka the Book Broad. Julie Broad is the author of several books, including one of my favorites, Self Promote and Succeed, the no boring books way to build your brand, attract your audience, and market your nonfiction book. When I read that first line of her book, Many Good Books Don't Sell, it just stuck with me because she does such a great job of breaking down marketing versus selling, and we all need to hear it. Plus, Julie's sharing some exciting things coming when it comes to audiobooks, which she says is no longer optional. And if you're podcasting to market your book, why not market something they can listen to? Julie also has an incredible YouTube channel called Book Launchers, and I had the pleasure of getting to meet her in person in January at the PodFest conference. And then in February, I realized we share the same birthday. No wonder I love her, right? She's such a delight and so full of marketing wisdom. You're in for a treat today, so let's get to it.
Hey, Julie, welcome to Book Marketing Mania. I'm so thrilled you're here to serve my listeners today.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So y'all heard me gush all about Julie in the introduction. And I just want to jump right in, Julie, to something that really hit me with your book. And I'm sure it will my listeners too, if they get a chance to read it. But it's just the difference in marketing and selling. And you say in your book marketing doesn't sell books. So why does it matter?
I'm sure people are like, oh, well,
Yeah.
what the heck? This is terrible. But yeah, I think a lot of people think they just need this magical thing that's going to sell the books. And so they turn to marketing and they think, if I just go on the right TV show, or if I just do this one thing, it's going to sell my book. And the unfortunate, but I think fortunate thing for authors is that you have to do a lot of things. And there will be things that do sell more books than others. But a lot of times what you're doing is building an ecosystem. You're building this, what we call platform, that over time sells your books, builds your brand, and creates impact and income for you, but also for your book. And there never was, but there really isn't today, any one singular thing that you can do that is going to get all the results. And so that's why I say that, because so many people think they just need this magical marketing plan and now their book is going to sell. And, you know, if there was this magical marketing plan, I would charge way more for my services because I could guarantee exactly what's going to happen. And the reality is nobody can guarantee what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's so true. And I know you talk about it being, it's all about awareness, right? So we'll separate the two, right?
Yeah.
The book marketing is all about getting the awareness. So no matter what your goal is within that, it's, getting the word out. And then, you talk about it in your book, how marketing gets the word out, but then your book sales is kind of how you measure how you got the word out. But I also want to talk about even before that, like when you are getting the word out, because one of the things that my audience struggles with, Julie, and probably yours too, is just talking about it early enough. Like they think, okay, I don't start marketing until my book is in my hand. And I don't want to talk about it too early because then people won't buy my book. So talk a little bit about that, like how you overcome those issues.
Yeah, I think, I even want to back it up a little bit further and really say that the minute you think you're going to write a book, you need to start thinking about your marketing. And in particular, you don't necessarily like, I'm writing a book and I'm going to shout it from the rooftops because you haven't even put it on paper yet. But it's more like thinking, okay, what do I want this book to do? Who am I writing it for? And what's the angle that is going to appeal to them? And thinking about that from day one, right? This is what we call positioning. And that sets everything up from that moment on to be easier and more effective. And a lot of people write the book and then go, how am I going to sell or market the book? And they've missed this so important piece. They may have written a great book, but it's just not quite positioned right. And I can give some examples of that if that's useful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one in particular, we had a client come to us and he'd written a book called The Empathy Formula. And he'd had some people read it and they were like, yeah, this is good, but nobody's going to buy it. Like the people who need empathy are not your buyers. And so he kind of brought it to us and just said, like, is there any hope? And in talking to him, he'd had 21 different jobs and he had found that most of the bosses felt like they had to be mean to get results. And he kind of just blurted out, mean people suck. And you don't have to be mean. And it was kind of like a light bulb moment for him and the person on my team. And they just went, oh my gosh, that's the book. Like, Mean People Suck, How Empathy Leads to More Profits and a Better Life. Like, being an empathetic. So it still was the empathy formula, but the positioning was different. And that is what made the book marketable, because as the empathy formula, it was going to go right. Like, nobody was going to buy that thing. But Mean People Suck. Well, now you've got this juicy positioning. He was on media. He gave keynote talks on this. Like, it changes everything. And that's why I say the minute you think you're going to write a book, you have to be thinking about your marketing, because that book was pretty much the same, a little bit of change through it. But it's the positioning that was dramatically different that made it a success. And so that's when I say the minute you think about it. Now, along the way, how are you talking about it? Well, nobody wants to hear about your book every single day. Nobody is interested in that. But you can bring people along for the journey. And so once you know who you're writing it for and you've got this juicy hook, now you can kind of sprinkle little things along the way, whether it's in your email list or in conversations with people. And this is market testing. You can see what people are leaning into, going, oh, that's cool. Like, what did you just say? And you're like, okay, there's a chapter title, right? Like,
yeah. That's such a great example. And I was thinking, as you were talking through that, like, for people that their book's already out there, they're going to be like, oh, wait, now my book doesn't work. Maybe I didn't do all that in the beginning. But I think, like what you're saying, it sounds like you could still, in the marketing side of it, position it differently than what maybe you thought of when you were writing, right? To get people's attention. Like that. I was thinking, like, if he hadn't titled it or positioned it that way, he could still in his marketing talk about Mean People Suck, right? And just really go all in on that messaging in order to get people's attention and then get it on the book. I love that so much. We'll talk about between marketing and selling, like thinking of marketing as the awareness. And we do want to start it earlier and earlier, because we do get in our hands. And then it's like, what do we do with this book? Who do we talk to about this book? And we haven't done anything to build up a following or an audience or, people that are chomping at the bit for this message. So that's on the marketing side. But then on the selling side, where I think people maybe think they're marketing, but what you're talking about in the book, and you do this so well, is, on the selling side, that's the publicity, getting people to talk about you and your book on their platform. And then like your promotions you might be doing, the discounts, the incentives, any advertising, paid advertising, anything like that. It's kind of like after you have the book, right, to sell. It's kind of, in my mind, I'm trying to like dumb it down for myself and others. Is that kind of a good way to explain? I mean, you explain it so much better in your book, but I'm trying to kind of give us a little Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, I think with sales, I'm talking about anything that's going to be a conversion. So that's how I would really simplify it is the goal of this thing an immediate click purchase, right? Like
Okay.
that's how I think of sales. Versus like if I'm on a podcast, I would love for somebody to go purchase my book, but it's not really a conversion mechanism, right?
Yeah.
Really, my best goal when I'm on a podcast is that somebody comes and gets into my ecosystem somehow.
And amen to that.
Yeah. So you're getting in my newsletter or joining my free community or subscribing to my YouTube. And that's kind of my order of priority too, right? Like number one is I'd love you to be on my newsletter. Number two is go in my free community. Number three is subscribe to whatever. For me, it's YouTube, but for other people, it might be your social media. So that's my real true goal. And then eventually that might lead to a conversion activity, like a promotion that I run. And then I'm looking for that click and sale. And so that's how they're very different. And a lot of people think, they go, I'm on a podcast, I should be selling books because I was on that podcast. And that's not how I see it. I see it as the podcast is an awareness that may lead to a conversion event in the future. And that's the sales. Does that help?
Yeah. That's a beautiful way to explain it, especially for my audience, because we talk so much about hosting and guesting on podcasts. And I think there was a time, earlier on when there weren't as many books, there weren't as many podcasts, there weren't as many authors out there doing it. That may have led to sales, like if it was a well-known author, and they're talking to an audience that already really knows them. But yeah, I do think it's so different nowadays. And I was thinking, can you talk a little bit about too, because I think sometimes we get so focused on one or the other. And especially if we go, okay, we're just going to market, we're just going to get out there and serve and help people, which is all of our hearts. But sometimes you do actually have to sell, to get them to get the book. So we talk a little bit about that, like how you can kind of balance the two somewhat, so that you're not always selling, you have to market, but you're not always marketing because you do eventually have to make the invitation. Like somebody is chomping at the bit for that next step. And sometimes we kind of get stuck in one way or the other.
Yeah, I think for me, I always come at things from a place of service. And so, it's like, who's my reader? And if I don't tell them that there's an opportunity to take the next step, whatever that next step is, whatever's appropriate for that situation. Buy my book, like the other things that we just walked through. And so if I don't tell them, then I'm not serving them because they may be sitting there going, this is great. Like, tell me more. How do I take that next step? Or what is the next step? And so that's how I always look at it. But everything that I'm doing, like the content I'm creating, it's not about look at me. It's about, okay, what have I learned today that's going to be of value to my audience? And so, even though at the end it might be like, okay, I did this and now you should go try my software, right? Like, but that's only because what I just learned really makes me go, wow, I'm so excited I created this software that can do this thing, right? Like, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it. And so I think people feeling like you're selling, that's only if your goal is that transaction. For me, the goal is to serve that person, right? Like, and for a lot of people, when you make that distinction, it really does help. Now, to your one point, I do want to note is you still have to take it that next step, right? Like you can't just give the stuff and not ever offer that next step. And again, I'm serving the person by telling them, hey, listen, like if this is good, here's something that's, going to help you with the next step.
Yeah, so true. Okay, so I want to also ask you about audiobooks because you talked a lot about this at Podfest, and I just loved it so much and got your audiobook because I think, especially with an audience that does do a lot of podcast guesting, like I think that's a prime audience, right, to be serving up your audiobook to them, being able to mention it. So talk a little bit about like how that's maybe changed from, it used to only be this big, huge production with Audible, but now there's some different ways to do it. And I'm going to definitely link to Julie's video she has about this. So she'll be able to explain it in a lot more detail, but I'd love to at least have you touch on that.
Yeah. So, this is a big, exciting thing to unpack. And so pause me at any point. But for podcast guesting, the thing that I'm most excited about is how strongly Spotify has come into the book space. And so they have Spotify for authors. And as soon as they announced this, I was like, get on this. They're going to compete with Amazon. And sure enough, they are starting to really do things to compete with Amazon. And just this year, they announced that they have a partnership with bookshop.org so people can purchase your physical book. And a lot of people will purchase the physical book to go along with the audiobook, especially in the nonfiction space. And so they have that partnership. They also announced a feature so that you can take a picture of wherever you are in the book and it immediately takes you to where they are in the audiobook and vice versa, right? It'll tell you where it is in the physical book. So they've made it so much easier to sync. And unlike Amazon, who has Whisper Sync, which does something similar for the ebooks and audiobooks, it is not dependent on being in the Spotify system, right? This is something the Spotify app helps you with, even if you didn't purchase the book through them. So as a podcaster or a podcast guest, now your person listening can immediately go and find your book inside of the system without ever leaving Spotify. And so if you reference a chapter that talks about something, they can listen to that single chapter. And I've talked to the Spotify for Authors team, and I believe they're going to make it so discoverable in the future that even your chapter titles could be discovered. So it's not just going to be author name and book title and subject, kind of category. I think they're going to take that discoverability, which will be super exciting, and also really put the emphasis on your chapter titles. So that's like the exciting world, because right now Audible is the big player. Like most of your audiobook sales are going to come from Audible, but they're mean. Like they do not pay you very much at all for this book. Like they set the price, so you don't get to choose the price, and then they take a huge percentage. So, audiobooks are kind of a tough place to make money. And yet where we are today, I don't think it's optional. I do believe every author has to have multi-formats because a book is no longer a single, they want to read it and that's it. Like it's an experience. And you see these features coming on. People want to interact and have options and consume it in all different formats because they're on the go, and at night in bed, they might want to read it, but on the way to work, they want to listen to it. So it's important that you're multi-format. It's not optional.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I have all 3 versions of your book, and probably both of them actually.
Well, thank you.
Both books. Yeah. Because I'm the same way. It is like, it just depends on where you're at and what method you want to consume it in. And again, being able to hit people on the go. And especially if we're so used to listening to podcasts, we probably listen to audiobooks. But then being able to come home and look at it on my ebook and highlight things. And then sometimes you just want to feel a paperback and do some exercises in it. So I think that's really great. Well, I'll pause you there because I want to link to your videos on the audiobook structure because you give up so much. And maybe I'll just have you back to talk about that because I think it's so exciting that we don't just buy books in one place anymore. We buy them in multiple places, and the same is going to be with our audiobooks. But yeah, I'll definitely put the links in there because I want to make sure that we talk about your business, Book Launchers, and all the services you offer because people think, okay, I'm publishing, so, I need some support in this category or this category. And then there's, different ways to publish and who do I talk to before I even think about my book? And there's so many different things. And I think a lot of these things are under your umbrella. And so I'd love for you to share your services and how you help authors from the very beginning to way past their book is out.
Yeah, thank you. So I started the company in 2017. Yes, 2017, because I really saw a need to bring everything under one roof like a traditional publisher. So we're self-publishing services. So the authors own the rights, everything's in their name, they have full control, but we do everything at the process and the standards of a traditional publisher. And I saw this need because of what you just said. Like, you can hire somebody to edit, you can hire somebody for a book cover, you can hire somebody for the marketing side. But really, like, why traditional publishers are, the deal is coveted is because it's all under one roof and it's set up to go in one direction, right? And you have to become the general contractor when you self-publish. So you need to be the one that's telling everybody your vision and making sure that they're holding that vision when they do these things and that they aren't just making a beautiful cover. They're making a cover that's set up for that category that's going to sell and appeal to that reader. And so these things are hard to do in isolation, right? It's hard to edit a book without understanding how you're going to market it and sell it and position it. It's hard to create a cover without understanding the categories and, again, the reader and the goals. And so that's why I brought it all under one roof. And that's what we do. So most people will come to us either with an idea or a first draft of a manuscript, sometimes a partially edited one. And then we do all these positioning pieces while we're producing this manuscript and setting up the website and the platform and like all of those things. And then post-launch, we will do some marketing for clients like podcast pitching, reviews, all those sort of things. But also we've built software as an alternative that you can basically do what my team does for book marketing with the software. So the software does almost everything except for the outreach portion, which frankly, we're not that far away from being able to add the outreach in there too, and use the software as kind of the DIY or use our services for all the things. But we don't just market it. Like, I would send somebody to somebody like you for the like, if you bring me a book that's already done, we don't really work with those books very much. We like to start with them early.
Okay. Yeah. And does that differ from hybrid publishing? I mean, maybe I don't quite understand, or is it similar?
No, so it's similar. Hybrids have varying degrees of what they do. Some will just do a single edit on your book and then produce it. Some will just publish it as it is, put a cover on it and publish it. One of the reasons I am passionate about what we do is because when you do a hybrid contract, you may own the rights to your book, but you don't have control.
Okay.
And this control piece doesn't seem to matter until it does.
Yeah.
And so what I mean by that is, let's say all of a sudden you want to run ads and you need reports faster because your hybrid is the one that all the sales go through them. And you can run ads, but 60 days later, you find out if they actually worked or not.
Yeah.
You don't have control. And then we've helped so many clients whose hybrid just stops communicating with them, goes out of business, stops printing their book, like whatever it is. And even though they own the book, they don't actually have the control to do the things they want to do, or they want to change the cover, but the hybrid's not cooperating with them. And so that's why hybrid is similar to self-publishing in that you own your book. But for me, I'm like, if you're going to do this, just self-publish because you have full control over that thing and you can change, you can do what you want, and you have full flexibility. So that's, for me, the difference. The reason some people do go hybrid, they think having the publisher logo matters. And a few, and there's only a couple, hybrids do have good bookstore sales teams. So they do get your book into bookstores. And that can be really important to some authors. And that is one advantage. And I can think of two that do this really, really well.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your author launch toolkit. But first, because there is an AI component, Julie, so we're talking about book marketing. Okay, so let's not talk about book writing, but book marketing as far as AI goes. So do you get any pushback from authors thinking, oh, I don't know if I should be using AI for my book marketing?
Yeah, less so now. We don't advocate writing a book with AI. That's not our stance at all. However, I think a lot of people that we work with and around us have realized that if you're not using the tool like marketing and ideation and some of these pieces, you're going to get left behind. It's not really a choice anymore. I think you really do need to use it because everybody is going that direction. And so you're going to be slower, it's going to be more costly if you don't. So that's it. But with this tool and any tool, there's choices as to how much information you give it. Now, I'm always going, well, look, like yeah, I get it that I don't want my ideas to go into the AI system, but at the end of the day, I want every LLM to know who I am, know my work, and, be recommending me. And
Right.
so I'm not that afraid of, you know, telling AI all about my stuff and my work and like those
Uh-huh.
kind of things. All that said, our tool, doesn't train the systems, right? It does have OpenAI underneath, but it doesn't use the data. You don't have to input your book. You can just tell it about you, tell it about your book, and then it produces everything from there. The more information you give it, the better the results are going to be. Like it will recommend influencers and what to say to those influencers and why they're a good fit. Like it'll scour the social media and it'll go, okay, listen, your book talks about, humane treatment for dogs, and this person's passionate about dogs, has 5 dogs of their own, have been to the shelters. Like it'll tell you that sort of thing so that you can go, hey, you've got that immediate common relation when you reach out to that influencer. So it does stuff like that and finds podcasts that are a good fit and tells you why and, all of those things. So the more information you give it up front, obviously, the better those things are going to be for you.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. I'm going to definitely put a link to that in there. And then lastly, I wanted to ask about your community because you have a huge author community inside school. So tell us about that, Julie.
Yeah, for sure. So it's free. Anybody's welcome to come and join us. We do, primarily talk about nonfiction.
Uh-huh.
So it's booklaunchers.com/school, and it's SKOOL. But yeah, it's called the Author Lab. And we have amazing authors inside of there that are so supportive. They're experienced. Some of them have done 8, 20 books. So they answer questions. And then we do trainings, and we have a premium community where we do office hours and one-on-one calls and things like that. So if you want that extra touch, I do some of the office hours, but my team does the one-on-ones. Prizes. Everything I do always has prizes because I love
Yeah.
giving things away.
That's so fun. And when you said it's free, because it is for any nonfiction author,
Mhm.
it's not only for book launchers authors, right?
No. The
Yeah.
premium, we put all of our paid authors in the premium community, but you can also just pay $100 a month to go in the premium community.
Mhm.
But yeah, the free portion, anybody is welcome. We have fiction authors in there too. Like it's geared towards nonfiction, but a lot of fiction authors still like the conversation around, building a
Yeah.
business and what to do to sell your book and all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Okay. Well, great. I'm going to put all these resources in the show notes as well as Julie's books because they are so fantastic. I just can't recommend them enough. And Julie, thank you so much for your time. This has been such a treat for me, and I know a treat for my listeners too.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh gosh, I love how Julie just makes things simple to show us that selling is when you're asking for a conversion. So at the point, you're going to click a link and buy your book, or they're going to click a link and join your email list, because even that is selling someone on becoming an email subscriber. And everything else is marketing, which we need to be doing a lot of these days, right? To get people to know, like, and trust us way before they're ready to take that next step. Again, Julie's book is full of wisdom and linked in the show notes. And heads up, you'll find a link to get her audiobook for free inside. Thanks for tuning in to Book Marketing Mania. And as always, I'll be there for you next episode to help you reach and serve your readers one podcast at a time. See you then.